Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Neil, Refracted Curvature, Righteous Force, 10th Man, Chocolate Saying, Brian's Logic. I'm sure I saw Arwin join, although he's not there now, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Yo, yo. Good morning.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, is there in my chat? I could have swore I saw him join. Did he join and then drop again? Oh, shout out to you, Arwin. I'm sure you'll join in a second if you haven't already. Maybe it's just my imagination. Anyway, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Ask the colonists, they'll tell you.
No, I must have imagined it because I had to admit him, so he hadn't joined. It was my imagination. Hey, Arwin.
Hello. Good afternoon.
I'm going to tempt fate immediately as soon as we've started and I've done the intro. We had an entire show and the computer hasn't crashed in 24 hours, so definitely well worth the share. I mean, odds are it's going to be okay, right? Hopefully we won't crash in the middle of this live stream, but things seem okay.
You've been running for 24 hours nonstop?
Whole 24 hours. I've had it running for a month solid at one point, so...
King of Kings.
Whoa. Anyway, share the show. Please share the show. Smash that share button.
Your question, the housekeeping question.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
What precedes a hypothesis, Nathan?
The observation of a natural phenomena. Then you've got half the hypothesis.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what is their natural phenomenon that they need a hypothesis for?
Well, are we not specific? We're not picky. From any of those fields, we're not picky in the housekeeping question.
Okay, well, astronomer, what are they looking at in the sky at?
Well, astronomers tend to just name stuff.
Okay.
They're looking at stars. Gravity bends light.
Am I done with my point here?
I'm going to go with
they're
yes.
Looking at...
Yes, let's move on.
So they're looking at stars and naming them. And then they start making claims about these stars, like their distances and so forth. But all they've done is seen a phenomena of a star. But then comes, in the scientific method, hypotheses. Are they not just stuck there at this point because they can't go any further?
They can't.
The star itself is not a phenomenon.
Something the star does.
Is it naturally?
Well, the appearance of the star could be considered a phenomena, but even then, you're just saying just star. No, that's not a phenomena. But the star's appearance in the night sky you could class as a phenomena at the most basic form. Its movement. There's various other things. The behaviour of them that they observe and then give names to. All of those things could be considered phenomena. But John's right. If you just say star, that's a concrete noun.
This is so great of a show. I have to be so pedantic to get by any of you guys. Okay, so the moon crossing the evening sky, is that a phenomenon?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, see, isn't that great audience that we keep each other in line here?
10th, you forgot that all you have to do is just name the star and then say science is back, baby.
But they don't claim that as a phenomenon. They claim that the Earth is rotating, making it seem like the moon is actually crossing the night sky, but it's not actually doing it. So they don't have a phenomenon.
Well, that's the movement is there. What they attribute to the movement supposedly came after a hypothesis test, but that's where they couldn't go anymore, is what I'm trying to get to.
Well, yeah, no, I accept that. But what I'm saying, though, it's like What are you talking about? Are you talking about the movement of the stars through the night sky? Well, that's not what they believe is happening.
Thank God. Science is back, baby. And the Earth is round.
Thanks, Mayor Lightfoot.
Oh,
The
gosh.
second time Arwen was mistaken for a woman in 2 days.
All right, let's get back to the subject.
Man,
Yes,
I
Joe.
wasn't sure what we were watching.
So
there
that
for a
means
second.
we could tell them what was their independent variable for them to assume the Earth was turning for the star to appear to be moving. And this is
You
would
just
be
answered your own
interesting to hear
question. You just answered your own question. Earth turning. That's their presumed cause.
I know. I
Yeah,
want to see.
you see the phenomenon. Tenth, you see the phenomenon in the sky. You know, the stars moving, and then you say what's causing that is the thing that's not moving, the ground. Simple.
They tell you that in the what do you call it? In one of those things that you go to. What is that called again? Planetarium. They'll say right now we got the walls moving as the stars, but in reality, you're moving on the ground.
Right, right. So if we put a drone up off the Earth, hovering not with the Earth, like moving with the Earth, like they say, and the camera shows the stars are still moving while the drone is not on the Earth, which in their case is the reason for the movement of the stars, then we just disprove all that.
Yes. So
Right, but is it okay to deny your phenomenon in your hypothesis as of the cause of your phenomenon? Does that make sense on any level?
well, in other words, if you've got a claim that Earth's turning beneath to cause drift as a second reference frame, is it acceptable for someone like Simon Dan to come along and say, you and your reference frames are ruined, ergo destroying the prerequisite for 2 reference frames in the claim that the globe makes? Is that acceptable? No, it's entirely embarrassing and will never be forgotten years after it's been declared.
And in just the same way, if your phenomenon is the stars moving across the night sky, is it acceptable to deny that happens within your cause? No, they don't have a phenomenon. If they're a heliocentrist, they don't have a phenomenon.
Wait a second. I thought that it was a phenomenon. You just couldn't vary and manipulate it.
No, you're trying to vary and manipulate that which you assume causes the effect. So if you're saying star movement is your phenomena, that's perfectly acceptable as your dependent variable. But then you need to vary and manipulate a supposed cause of that effect and induce the effect. So for the sake of argument, you say, oh, I can't. Well, they're always there. No, they're not. They're not there in the day. Vary and manipulate your assumed cause of its effect and induce the effect. If you can do that, then you've validated a hypothesis. You've invalidated the null. That's what you do to in science, but they just don't have any. They can't even formulate a hypothesis. That's the reason for the housekeeping question. Quick shout out before anybody jumps in to Godzilla, who's gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much, Godzilla. Snap them up, however that is done. Also, he says, good morning. Member for 29 months, Godzilla. Thank you for the super chats. Really appreciate the support. Thank you for dishing out the memberships as well. Go ahead.
As a more recent example, like with Jaron, he said that heat is not the cause of water boiling, right? What is his phenomenon he's studying? If he's denying it, can he have a cause at that point?
Well, that's absurd because water is caused to boil when you apply heat to it.
Right. Okay. So for someone to say that water isn't boiling because you heated it, you can just say it's absurd. In the same way, you can say that the stars in the sky aren't moving. They obviously are.
Right. If something is stated that obviously denies the evidence of your own eyes, feel free to deny that declaration. Okie dokie. So yesterday we did a bit of ascension and declination, and we're going to do it again with a different YouTuber who's called Mary Purvis. This is a relatively short video. I'm sure we'll.
No, not the Mary Purvis. Not the Mary Purvis. You wanted the 1 minute one, didn't you?
You said the first one was the Mary Purvis. Was the 1 minute one.
No, do the other one. I'm sorry, I must have misplaced it.
No, that's okay.
No, it's good to do the other one first, though.
Okay. So this one is called Finding the Zenith on the Planosphere. I think this is probably an ad, so let's just skip our way through this. But as always, go to this videographer's video and let them know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. So there's a link to this going by in the chat right now. So let's just show that on screen now. The idea being that this videographer, were they to respond, albeit with a very limited number of subscribers, less than 100, they'd stick a link to my video. Doesn't matter if they're big or small, we'll share the algorithmic love, but let them know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, we responded to your video. Okay, let's get into this.
In this video, we're going to discuss what the zenith is and how to find it on the planosphere. First off, the zenith is the point directly above your head.
I'm a bit confused already. So, when he says the zenith, does he mean your zenith, as I say it? Your zenith? Because he said the
Yes.
zenith. And even the
Yes, it
title.
would have to.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Yes, yes, it's directly what you're under, which means directly above your head.
But if
I
I
thought it
said,
was a TV.
if I was to say the star was at my zenith, that language would mean that the star was directly above me. That's what that language would mean. But he's saying to find the zenith. Now, if he's saying the zenith position were you to be under it, I don't know. It seems badly phrased,
Well, you
unless
gotta-
I'm missing something.
It's a short video. He's talking in usage of the tool of the planosphere. So he's going to use the tool of the planosphere and say, with that has to match your zenith because the star has to match directly what's above you. So I think he's making reference to that.
So if we have our guy standing on the ground, the zenith would be that point. Now, how do we know where in the sky our zenith is when talking about a planosphere? If you might remember, if you look towards Polaris, the altitude of Polaris is your latitude. Here in Chicago, that would be 42 degrees.
How useful to have it disseminated so concisely. Just for that, you're going to get a like. Correct. Flat Earth is a prerequisite for that statement. You must have a flat baseline between you and the zenith position of Polaris, right? Where its GP is, essentially. Directly below Polaris, between you and it, if you're going to calculate your latitude, you require a flat baseline. Why? Well, because you wouldn't get a degree measurement as shown on screen now. This isn't possible unless you have a flat baseline, as depicted and drawn by this gentleman.
Which means the zenith must be 48 degrees from Polaris. So on our planosphere, if you look carefully, you might find that along the axes, there are degree marks, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, so forth. Ours must be, as we said, 48 degrees.
So it does mean your zenith. Finding your zenith on a planosphere. Okay.
From Polaris, or in other words, a declination of 42. So our zenith is about right there. Which means every star that goes under that tick mark that I made goes through my zenith. Thank you.
Why? Okay. Fine.
All right, this was important before the next one. So back to if you can rewind it back to where he drew the right angle triangle. And what was his baseline?
Flat.
John's going to love this.
Okay, sunscreen.
Okay, so obviously we've been saying this, the sextant could only work this way. And now you've got the eye line horizon, which has to match the ground you're on, must match, because those stars and the GP of the stars could be thousands of miles away. And then you've got your GP. You can't have diverging zeniths. So even in the use of the planosphere, you have to do the same things you do with a sextant. You have to get a 90, subtract the altitude, elevation angle of the star above the baseline. The baseline happens to be, if you're using a sextant, your eye line, and then you do height of eye correction so that it matches the reference of the horizon. In this case, he's got a parallel. He's got the ground he's standing on, and then his eye line, the sensible horizon, as they call it, or the astronomical horizon. It must match the ground position as well for this whole thing to work. And then, as you turn it, because you're at that latitude, all the stars within that scope that you're in will be seen. I thought the Earth was revolving and orbiting. Wouldn't that change that? Forget the other two movements. They've got assignment of the Earth revolving, orbiting, flying through the solar system, following the sun, and going in a different direction inside the Milky Way galaxy. And you mean I could just mark this? And because that's where I'm at, all the stars at that place will always show up because I have a definitive place on a stationary Earth?
No, we're moving in multiple axes at tens of thousands of miles an hour around the Great Attractor and at thousands of miles an hour around the sun. What's wrong with you, man?
But plus, we'd have to be a ball first before we're moving anywhere or spinning or any of that crap.
This was important just to get this part. The next video will be going in more detail on the planosphere.
Okay, so that's the first time I don't think we've got any criticism whatsoever, basically, for the video that just passed. So let them know. Good video. Don't normally say that. Anyway, let's move on. So this video is by Mary Purvis, and you're going to see a link to her video going by in the live stream chat right now. And as before, let Mary know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. We responded to your video. Obviously, as before, the idea being that the algorithmic love being shared by a whole bunch of people from our audience going to see her, and hopefully she'll get over 1,000 subscribers, as she's at almost 1,000 subscribers. You never know. Either way, hopefully she'd return the algorithmic love and put a link to my video where she to respond.
Are going to talk a little bit about how to use a planosphere. Planosphere is one of the pieces of equipment you've been asked to purchase for this course. It is a paper slide rule type device, and it's very useful for looking at comparative positions of constellations, for seeing diurnal motion of constellations.
What was that word? Diurnal. I've never heard that word before. What does that mean?
Diurnal? I've never heard that.
Anybody?
Diurnal? What?
Diurnal. The stars movements.
What does that mean?
It's just the way they refer to the background stars in as versus the sun or the wandering planets. It's based on the stars, just the celestial sphere and the stars that are attached to it in their imagination. As they say, you have to imagine this.
So for Brian, then the diurnal or diurnal, what is it? Diurnal
means it relates to them when they're in the day. So it's the position of the stars in the day when you can't see them.
Diurnal, says Quinlan 1977. Diurnal during the day. Yeah, like Adam just said.
Diurnal. Yeah, dates to the position they would have if you could see them.
Gotcha. Oh, so that's why it's specifically got a title, because it's seeing them on the planosphere when you're not seeing them in the sky. Okay. Diurnal. You learn something new every day.
And stars, and to kind of locate things in the night sky. Now, the planisphere you've been asked to purchase is from 40 to 50 degrees north latitude. That's
Flat Earth required.
because that is where we live. We live in the northern half of the North American continent.
On a flat Earth, with degree measurements capable.
Of the United States. And so this one works very, very well. There are other types. This one is for 30 to 40 degrees latitude.
Flat Earth required.
And if you lived a little bit further south, let's say you lived Missouri, Oklahoma, even as far south as maybe Florida, Southern California, this one would be a little bit better. If you happen to get the 30-40 instead of the 40-50, do
Flat Earth required either way.
not stress about it. Both are going to be pretty darn close for our purposes. Now, this slide rule device can be useful for determining what the sky looks like on any particular day or time. Now, you'll notice on the outside ring here, there are calendar dates, and you'll notice that there are times, 6 a.m., 5 a.m., 1 a.m., midnight, 11, 10, 9 p.m., etc. And
I've got to be honest, I like her description so far. It's nice and simple. It's good. She's doing a good job, I would say.
I would say for anybody new watching, why would you say that a flat Earth is required?
To get an angle measurement. So she's describing the degrees, the latitudes that the planisphere covers in this particular description. Well, for it to cover from one particular degree measurement to another particular degree measurement means that you're measuring degrees. Well, that means the baseline is flat to the horizon, and it's the angle of, I don't know how they measure it on a planisphere actually. It's latitude, of course it is. So it's with respect to Polaris. How far away is Polaris? How close to the horizon is it from your position? The North Star's not moving. Where is it in the night sky? In degrees, along a flat baseline. That's a flat Earth. Every single declaration of the degree in this planisphere proves a flat Earth. That's why.
You said latitude? That sounds like some sort of a grid system. Do we have curvy grid systems or no?
No, it's Cartesian. It's just a box. Flat.
Oh, okay. Straight lines then.
Yeah, I mean, you can represent the elevations of things, and they're all referenced to sea level at 0 on the box, on the grid.
And we set the day and the time in order to give us an accurate picture of the sky. So I am going to choose the spring or vernal equinox, which is right around March 20th. And we're going to do the vernal equinox, and we're going to go to right around midnight. So I have this set for 12 midnight at March 20th, that spring or vernal equinox. Now, if I stood and looked north, what I would see in the northern horizon is I would see Cassiopeia, Cepheus. About 45 degrees up, I would see Polaris, our north.
There you go. She's just explained. Now, this will be a 45 or 40 to 50 degree chart, I think she said it was. Right? Well, that's how she's getting the claim of the chart and where it represents with Polaris with respect to the horizon. That's how the chart works. Again, I don't normally give so many plugs. This is a really good video. As is always the bloody case when you get someone that's doing a really good job of something. She's got less than 1,000 subscribers, right? If she'd have only mentioned that, then that proves the ball at the end of a couple of sentences, this would have 1 million views. Anyway, share the algorithmic love. Link's going by right now. Let Mary know. Great job.
North Star. And the grommet of the planisphere represents that North Star, or the zenith of the celestial sphere.
This is actually proving a little bit difficult to criticize. Obviously, I've got to interrupt it for seemingly no reason, 10th. But are we supposed to be critical of this?
No, it's.
I think.
Go on,
Sorry,
Jonathan.
Tim. I was just going to say, I think the important part of it is what you just said, right? Because if this lady was in this video talking about oh, this proves absolutely that we live on a ball, yeah, it probably would have all types of views. But because she's just stating reality, very basic, it's not very popular. And that's where the brainwashing comes in, because they
May
need that reinforcement. So they want to find something that says, yes, we live on a ball, definitely, instead of just describing things the way they are. Even though she
may
probably still believes we live on a ball, but that doesn't matter. Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
no, that's good. You remember when I was scouring through the sextant manuals and nautical almanacs, and I was seeing things, and it just wasn't making sense. This is similar. Okay, so how does this planosphere work? How do we know where the stars are going to be all the time, every year, every month, every hour, every minute, every second? How do we know that? Oh, you get it from the ephemeris. Oh, so the ephemeris astronomy shows you the night sky, the celestial sphere, a flat Earth model. Basically, they use it because you can't have a rotating Earth with a celestial sphere. It must be a stationary Earth. So it's like, okay, I need someone who understands the planosphere to explain exactly how it works. And this is what we're going through. So we could all learn and see how they could put right angle triangles and say subtract from 90, like in the other books about the sextant, and at the same time, assume they live on the globe, which gives you no 90. So we're just learning about how a planosphere works at this point. It's going to get more interesting as you go on.
Heroes has just pointed out the comments are off on this video. Anyway, they've got no way of sharing the algorithmic love other than people going and giving you a like. And you've also turned off the numbers. But there we go. You've turned off the likes. It'll still hopefully get a few people clicking on the video.
The North Celestial Pole. If I go further up in the horizon, probably right about the top of my head, I would see Ursa Major and the asterism, the Big Dipper. If I went even past the top of my head and a little bit south.
Did you catch that? If I go further up above the what? Horizon. So that means everything below the horizon, star-wise, you can't see. Everything above the horizon, star-wise, you could see.
Probably right about the top of my head, I would see Ursa Major and the asterism, the Big Dipper. If I went even past the top of my head and a little bit south, I would see these other constellations, for example, Virgo. Now, if I wanted to know what was on the eastern horizon on March 20th at midnight, what I would do is I would turn this so that east was now horizontal, and on the eastern horizon, a fucus would be coming up over the horizon.
Okay, again, exceptionally great. Can't criticize anything she's doing.
If I wanted to see what was...
Go on then.
Nothing is coming up over the horizon.
Yeah, you could be pedantic about language in terms of describing things, in terms of their dumbed down description, even from our point of view. Would you not say it's reasonable to say the things coming up, not over the horizon? Yeah, I don't like the terminology. You're right, Brian. I'll give you. Yeah, don't like that.
She's contradicting herself with her other, with the way she's describing it prior to that. Then saying something is coming up over the horizon makes no sense whatsoever, because she's describing flat plane and parallel zeniths. That's what she's describing all the time.
Right.
And
hold on, 10th.
She's describing all the time a flat plane and parallel zeniths. So the zenith to the celestial body and her zenith will be parallel. And she's describing how all these other celestial bodies and how their positions on the Earth in accordance with Polaris, because that's what the latitude and longitude grid is. It's based on Polaris. So when something has a latitude and longitude of whatever number, that's based on in relation to Polaris. So when she says something is coming up from over or behind the horizon or whatever way she said it, it's like, no, completely contradictory to everything else she said. That's my critique on it.
That's why earlier when I said stop, I believe she said when you look up above the horizon, you see these other stars.
Right, but that's a criticism of the celestial sphere model itself, which is still a flat plane model. So I agree with Brian, but she's still using a flat plane.
On the western horizon, I would turn to the west and I would look and see, who is that on the western horizon? So I am going to twirl this a little bit, and who is just setting in the west? And that would be our dear friend Orion, one of the most wonderful constellations that's out there. You can use the planisphere to predict what's going to happen if a constellation is going to rise or set. So, for example, I had this set at March 20th at midnight. So let's go back to March 20th at midnight.
We've got the general gist of what's been disseminated in terms of how this works. Is there anything else we need from this video now, 10th?
Yeah, keep going.
And at that situation, Orion is...
I would say the rising and setting is her heliocentrism bias, and that terminology stems from that, because even when you ask them, is the star getting any closer to Earth? They'll say no. So then it's not rising or setting.
I think it's a perspective view. That's all. It's just a language for the perspective view we have. So it's directly above us at noon. Go on.
Well, I was just saying we don't have to make apologies for it here. I mean, Brian's right. She's gonna have to take it on the chin. As much as she's doing a great job, her biases are coming through in terms of the globe terminology. Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't critique this, and I admire Brian for picking up on it where I didn't. But I think you're right, both John and 10th, right? She's not doing this because she wants to push a globe. It's just how her phraseology would work, and so would ours be if we were making this 10 years ago, right?
Well, it's you can't listen. Most people are under this heliocentric, not geocentric, globe Earth turning, not a stationary Earth. They're under this education all their life. They've been indoctrinated. So those terminologies are coming in. What we're trying to point out is the inconsistencies of having an angle measuring device with a sextant and then saying all these other things about a globe. Now we're trying to point out how a planosphere is to be used with a sky map. The right ascension declination, where you're using the vernal equinox as 0, and then no matter where you are on Earth, everyone could just go to RA and DEC and see the same thing. Well, you're no longer on the Earth map. We're looking at sky maps when we're talking about right ascension declination. So are there inconsistencies there? Well, we saw that yesterday in that video. So now we're going to a planosphere and trying to figure out the mechanics of it. How does it work? Does it show Earth on this thing? No, it just shows the sky. Okay, what's the reference frames? How does it work? This is what she's taking us through. But she's going to make mistakes about the globe because she's a glober.
Indeed, she's a normie. She's not a glober. But speaking of inconsistencies, this show's been pretty inconsistent for the last couple of weeks. Hopefully, this will be now the point where we have consistent live shows at the times that they're scheduled to happen, and they go through in their entirety for at least an hour. But with 85 people watching, I'm glad that people are hopefully sharing. 88 people watching. Yeah, please share the show. It'd be nice to get back over 100. I can appreciate why the numbers have dropped given the inconsistency of the show. But hopefully with a lot of hard work that I put in over the weekend and over the last few days, that's been resolved and we can have consistent live shows. So please smash the share button. Let's get to at least over 100 people watching today. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to forgive her at this point. It's not going to get a load of vitriol from me. Let's put it that way. But it's right to point it out, Brian.
Is just setting in this horizon, on the western horizon. Let's take a look at the little dog that's chasing Orion, his dog Canis Minor, and let's see as the night goes on if Canis Minor is going to be rising or setting. So I'm going to change this from March 20th at midnight to March 20th at 1 a.m. So I'm going to slide this. Whoops, make sure I slide it the right direction. 1 a.m., March 20th. What happened to Canis Minor? He's actually coming down towards the western horizon. If I go to 2 a.m. on March 20th, 2 a.m., March 20th, there is Canis Minor, and he is about to set. So you can see
So you can see and get the general idea of how this works. It isn't that complicated, but she's doing a really good job of something that at the surface level looks complicated.
Which constellations are setting, and if you go on that eastern horizon, you can see that Aquila is coming up. Now, this is the north-facing side of the planisphere. Let's take a look at the south-facing side. And I'm going to actually go back to March 20th at midnight, because that's just nifty. Okay, so we've got this set again, midnight, March 20th. Flip this guy over. If I was standing looking south, what would I see to the south? Well, I would see Hydra the water snake, big, very large constellation right there. Now, you'll notice there is a smaller piece of the sky, fraction of the sky. It goes up about 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 degrees or so. And if I...
And you'll need a flat earth for that. Yeah, back to talking about degree measurements. Flat earth required.
Go further up the southern sky, there's not an awful lot there. Virgo is a little bit off to the west, and Sextans is over here a little bit on the east. But if I wanted to know what was really high in the southern sky, I would actually turn it over, and that's where I would see that high southern sky. It would be right about there. Other things that the planisphere shows us that is really cool. If you look on the backside,
Pause.
there is...
All right. If you go outside tonight and you look at the sky, are you going to see 0 to 90 and 90 to 0 if you look from east to west?
Providing there's nothing blocking my view like buildings, then I'm going to see from 90 to the horizon, obviously notwithstanding obstructions, to my zenith,
Right.
and then back down again to 90 or to
Right.
0,
Well,
180.
let me just try to use a day object like the sun first, and then we'll go into night stars. You see the sun rising in the east. It's at your 0, let's say, horizon. And by noon, it's directly over you. Well, you don't say at that point, I don't see it anymore. You just keep following it as it's going towards the west, and then it's at the horizon again. That's a 180 with 90 directly above you. That's what you see. We all see that. Now, turn off that light, the sun. Now you're same guy, same place. And you see the stars rotating in the sky in the same way. They start at the horizon, and based on where you are, those stars are visible to you. Okay. Now, if you flip this thing over, you see the other stars. What does that mean? So let's say I'm on the equator. According to what we're told, Polaris would either be seen at 0 or not be seen at the horizon. But the whole bunch of other stars are being seen from the equator south that I couldn't see if I was, say, in California in the northern hemisphere, she's saying. So you're moving along this disk or this plane, not a globe, and the sky keeps opening up to more stars as you move away from other stars. The whole point I'm trying to make is that it's still got to go from 0 to 90 and then 90 back to 0 on a 180 baseline. Everyone following what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's it. It's beautiful.
Flat earth required.
Be right about there. Other things that the planisphere shows us that is really cool. If you look on the backside, there is a key of different shapes. The cross is a globular cluster, the little dots is an open star cluster, the box is a nebula, and ovals are galaxies. So if we turn this back to this...
I asked earlier about the point of astronomy. All of those titles arbitrarily assigned, that's from astronomy, giving these things names. Quick shout out.
Galaxies.
Yeah. Quick shout out to Godzilla 37. Year 2045. Nathan Oakley leans back and says, 6 billion people watching. Our work here is done. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate the sentiment. Half of it's right. Leans back. That bit's about the only bit that's right. Thank you for the super chat, Godzilla 37.
side. Let's see if we can find some of those. I'm going over by Gemini, and M35, that's one of those Messier objects. The dark area here, that represents the Milky Way galaxy, and we are looking sideways through our Milky Way galaxy. And you're probably going to spot them before me. There we go. There's M5. That happens to be a globular cluster and a Messier object. You'll notice that constellations have their names in capital letters.
Go on, whoever that was. Did someone want to add something? Flat Earther with a gun, can you pop yourself on mute?
Individual stars,
Oh,
like
I'm sorry,
Regulus
my
in
bad.
Leo, individual stars are lowercase with the beginning capital. Sickle, that happens to be an asterism. That is a very visible thing that we can see in the sky, so that is noted. Other things you can find are the plane of the ecliptic. If you look at this dotted line, that plane of the ecliptic is the path that the sun appears to follow as we orbit it all year long.
Appears to follow. Why isn't it following the same pattern as everything else if it's based on the rotation of an Earth in a heliocentric model as you just disseminated? That seems to make no sense. Isn't that something we also discussed a couple of days ago in terms of it debunking axial rotation in quite a concise way?
And she
The
started
reason-
out so good, so neutral, and now it's all becoming reified objects in an outer space all of a sudden.
Well, no, she's used heliocentrism to make an apologetic for something that's on this chart.
Yes.
What?
This is no, you're right. Exactly, Nathan. This is the part that people are just going to kind of think about something else because it looks routine, but it's very important. This is what I want the audience to understand, because you know how sometimes you got something, but then if you find a cipher somewhere else, that something you have has a double meaning or more aspects of it are understood. What is she holding in her hand? A star chart.
Flat star chart.
Yep. So when I called the navigation school and I said, how in the world do you know to publish a book that I bought from this school that says we know exactly where all the navigational stars, the top 64, are going to be every year, every month, every week, every day, every hour, every minute, every second, from the year 2000 to 2050. And I'm buying the book somewhere in 2021 or something. I said, how do you know that? He says, oh, that's nothing. We know where they're going to be thousands of years in the past and thousands of years in the future. The book would just be too big. And what is she holding? She's holding a disc with the stars that always are where they're supposed to be based on elevation angle measurements to Polaris.
Off a flat plane. Woohoo! 100 people watching. So a big warm welcome to all of you who've just joined us. The only reason you're here is because somebody in the live stream chat has smashed the share button, and I would invite you to do the same if you've just got here. So, like I say, a big warm welcome. Please share the show with others. That's the only reason there's 100 people watching. So thank you very much to all of you who smashed that share button. Continue to do so. I really appreciate it. It's good to get some numbers back up in decent form now that we're back with, wow, I mean, at least 30 hours of consistent shows. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Thank you for all of the shares.
10th, I was going to say that was what, when I was listening to her, that was the thing that I kind of found funny, how cyclical it all sounds, right? How you can break it down to the day, to the time, all this, while we happen to be on a ball spinning around in a vacuum, going in like 35 different vectors in 25 different speeds. It's pretty cyclical for all that. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. No, that's that. Yeah. That's exactly. In fact, what are they there for? We know scripturally what they're there for. To be the greater light in the day and the lesser light in the night is the scripture says in Genesis for the sun and the moon. Okay. And also what? To guide us for, it's a circuit, it's a clock in the sky. It says here, yeah, in fact, I'm just looking it up. Thanks. Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
What did Adam say?
what I'm
signs and
saying.
seasons. Yeah. So I thought 10th had forgot it, not he was just about to quote it. Sorry,
Oh,
Ted.
so
No,
I've
no,
run
I
bit-
just wanted
okay,
to-
let's start that again. Everyone stop. Because Adam interrupted because he thought 10th had forgotten it. Then I interrupted to ask what Adam had said while he was saying it. So do you want to say it one more time? Sorry, 10th.
Yes. And God said, verse 14, Genesis chapter 1, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. That's
Right.
the purpose. And she's showing us that's the purpose.
Yep. If we actually had a 13-month month, let's call it, cycle, then people would keep a track better of what's going on and what's going to happen next. But we haven't. You know, we've got these crazy systems and crazy date structures. But there we go.
And along that, you are going
Blame
to find the
Not
ecliptic con-
Nathan.
Go on.
We've got Roman designation of things.
Gregorian, right?
Well, and then into that, yeah. But if
Blame
we,
Gregor.
Hold
we're
on,
gonna-
everyone stop interrupting Adam. Go ahead.
if we're gonna, you mentioned 13. That's how the Jewish calendar's working, because it was lunar based. So the primary denominator, the way in which you're going to measure each day in relation to the next, is via the moon. When we go to Christianity, they're abandoning that part of Judaism, and they accept the sun to be the main regulator of the year, not in any spiritual sense, but just in terms of a calendar sense. So early Christians moved to that, and that is what knocks things out. So the Jews would live in a 13-year cycle, or 19, Brian will tell me, in a cycle of 12, 13 years, which is the point where the moon and the sun realign back, the movement of Easter, movement of Passover, yeah? So it's that they would work in as we move into Christians, and that's where we lose a lot of that signs and seasons knowledge, even how to tell the time from the moon. We lose all of that knowledge. It's taken away from us.
We lose the predictability as well, which is where people like Copernicus come in, because he's being assigned the task of figuring out how Easter will come into fruition when you've got a sun-based or sun-centric system. So then you have to figure out the maths for something that is not working in the way that the luminaries are giving us a nice, consistent pattern to pay attention to. Well, when you've no longer got that pattern, you've got to try and figure out how you can make the pattern that doesn't work.
Yeah, but see, I look into this. The problem they had is they had to make a choice between the sun or the moon. Nothing to do with heliocentrism, just about the defining of a year. Because of the seasons. It's either you go by the moon and you're not working off of seasons then, or you go by the sun. Because the length of 13 moon months is slightly less than a full sun year. A full 12 months by the sun. So if the sun takes exactly 300 through our calculation, based on the sun giving us an exact 24-hour day, it takes exactly 365 of them to reset itself. So for it to come back to the exact same position now that it was last year, it takes 365 days. So it was a case of you had to go with the sun because the sun was giving the seasons. So that's why they had to, because the 13 moon months will be slightly less than 365 days. And that's why they had to do it. Now, I know what Adam's saying has relevance over a span of a greater number of years, but for a yearly cycle, the sun is why they went with the sun calendar. That's the reason, because then the seasons are always spot on. Otherwise, you'll have the seasons happening at different times and different dates.
Just one quick thing, just before you join in, Adam, again. Sorry. Just going to do one more quick plug. So if we can get to 110 people watching, I'll extend the live show out for another half an hour. So yeah, just smash that share button. If we can get 10 more people watching, up to 110 people, then I'll extend the live show. Go ahead, Adam. I'm sorry to cut you off.
All right. No, which we do. This is why we have April showers in May some years, and so the cycles do move. It's why we have Indian summers, as they describe it, with the Gregorian calendar. If you 13 times 28 is 364. In 1 day out every year rotation. and that's all. It's the lunar calendar is more accurate for signs and seasons, believe it or not, because it's got more detail. If you look at, it's something that cycles not over 1 year to give you an average, as Brian explains, even with the length of your day. But in reality, it repeats itself in many cycles over 13 years, 60 years, 60,000 years, the big circles, all of these things are there as described in scripture for signs and seasons. So you've got accuracy.
Right. Now,
And just
conventions
remember,
that we derive thereafter never work within them because we're using our crude number systems to try and quantify something that's got a complex pattern. And it's just never capable of being oversimplified to the point of our crude clocks and calendars. That's the problem.
One fix is the leap year, isn't it? So that first disconnect, it doesn't work in the solar cycle. You don't have to have leap years in a lunar cycle, but that part of that leap year is to bring things back into alignment. Otherwise, the convention of the solar year would eventually slide.
But the leap year is heliocentric, is it not?
Yeah, but it's to bring it back, isn't it? So that the cycle makes sense. Because the way they're describing it in a solar cycle means you get a 365 and a quarter.
Yeah, but that quarter is nonsense. You can't have a quarter.
But it has.
No,
I know.
it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because a day is a 24-hour day, exactly 24 hours. That is purely based off of one solar noon to the next. You can't have a quarter. That would be a bit of a day. You can't have that.
No.
So it's completely contradictory.
No, but you've got that extra day in every year for the solar cycle. But then if you follow that, you end up with extra days and it moves over massively over a 13-year period. So every 4 years they realign the cycle for the solar cycle to make sense versus the 13 lunar cycle that just works because that's what's, I'm not going to say dictating our seasons, but it lines up with them.
I'd like to add something here. Go on, Brian. I'll do that for you.
Very quickly. The thing about it is that in Ireland now, today is the first day of summer, right? 1st of June is 1st of summer. So June, July, and August has always been throughout my lifetime, and probably always will be throughout my lifetime, summer in Ireland. Now, December, January, and February is summer in Australia, and it always was. The point I'm making is that's why they will use a solar calendar, even though it's a bit more basic. For a start, it's more basic, so it's easier for people to understand. But it also gives people seasons separate from their 0.25 of a day and a leap year that they have to add in for heliocentrism. Forget all that. If you ignore all that, it gives you the seasons. So for people who are farmers, agricultural, these kind of things, I think it was all what was based around that, and for ease of use. Because a 365 day is an exact year, and it will be next year, and the year after, and the year after. Now, there might be some differences happening in between, but June, July, and August will never be my autumn, if you understand what I mean.
As we saw in the videos and our shows on the right ascension declination and the vernal equinox, let's step back a little bit. The globe claim, the heliocentric claim, the seasons are caused by Earth tilt. Of course, that's not reality, but they need that. The sky map, what?
I was going to say this is perfect because this leads back into the video where I said, well, this is using heliocentrism as an apologetic for where this chart fails. If you've got an axis, you're now going to launch into it. I'm going to highlight to the audience that this is the segue back into that point on the video where she's used heliocentrism to explain away something that doesn't work on an axis-based system if Earth's turning. But I want you to expand on it rather than me, if you would, 10th man. Go ahead.
All right, I'll try. So we know that for right ascension declination, you're not using a terrestrial map. You're using a sky map of stars, but you need two references. So it's declination, that's latitude, the grid in the sky, just like latitude on the Earth would be a grid on the plane we live on, Cartesian. But now what are you going to do about a reference point? Hold on, let me clear my throat.
103 people watching, edging over closer to 110. Please share the show.
All right, so what are you going to do with the reference point for longitude that you have on Earth? What's that going to be in the sky? Well, the Greenwich on Earth is for longitude using solar noon at Greenwich and using that method for longitude because we know the sun moves 15 degrees per hour. Okay, so what's it going to be for the sky map since we're not using the Earth? Well, it's got to be a date, the vernal equinox in March. Why? Because there is no Earth tilt. It's negated. Well, what happens when you're in the winter solstice? We're still using that date when we look up in the sky with RA and depth. So the date makes a universe that's flat, perpendicular now, not this 23.4 tilt. It's gone because it doesn't exist. And here's the thing. They want to say the seasons are caused by the tilt. Well, what happens on the vernal equinox? There is no tilt. Well, what's happening there? And why are you using that date? Why not use another? Why don't you use a solstice date for the sky map? It doesn't work. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. All right, so you say the Earth's tilted, that's the cause of the seasons. We're saying it's the sun moving on its circuit. It goes 23.4 above the equator line on the northward journey, and it starts its southward journey, crosses over the autumn equinox again on the equator, and goes 23.4 south, and it comes back up again exactly 365 days later. Right there. Okay, what's the moon doing? Oh, it's doing that every month. Wait a minute, you mean the moon traverses the same thing of the sun, but on a monthly basis where it takes the sun a year? And then you're telling me that there's a tilt, and that's the reason for the seasons, but when it comes to creating a star map with two references, you can't use that tilt. You got to negate it. This is leading me down into some kind of conspiracy here. What's going on here? In a flat plane. The reason we have seasons is because the sun is moving over a plane and it's at an angle to you at these months. And so you're not getting as hot compared to when it was directly overhead or closer to you.
And I just add a bit of trivium to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
109 people watching. One more and we'll stay live a little bit longer.
So this is from Egyptian theology, and the Egyptians would refer to God at this particular time of year, at the vernal equinox in March. When we're talking about the sun passaging between the two tropics and over the equator, the Egyptians understood that when it was at the Tropic of Capricorn, it was further south and lower in the sky. And when it was at the Tropic of Cancer, they recognized the sun actually had a higher position in the sky. Now, the Egyptians worshipped the sun, the Aten, and this is where the original phrase, the Most High, comes from. Because on this day, this was when God was his most high. So, point being, they recognized the movement of the sun, not only across transiting, but also, as it's described by flat earthers when they try to build a model today, that these transits actually affect the height in relation to the star field as well, hence the Most High.
Let me add something to that.
Hold on,
as well.
just one sec. Woohoo! 111 people watching, so we'll extend this live show. We're going to get 2 more minutes. No, I'm only joking. We'll go until we finish off this video.
Why, so you could take us out of a after
I was
show,
going
you
to say,
could cheat us out of?
wow.
Okay, go on, Brian.
Yeah. Many years ago, I detailed what is the supposed original path of the sun. And people made the point over the years that when the sun appears lower in the sky, let's say for me in Ireland, on December the 21st, that's perspective. And I go, yeah, that could be the case, right? Except for I added in a load of reasons why the sun would get closer to the Earth and further away, at least from our vantage point. And it was to do, I'm not going to go into all the details now, but a lot of it was to do with the Antarctic region, let's just say, and the Arctic, right? Mainly a lot of it was to do with the Arctic. But the thing about this is this, if you look at the Gleason's map, right, down at the bottom, you have those two little solstice markers. And he points out how much sunlight the Earth is getting on both the 21st of June and the 21st of December. And the area that the sun covers on the 21st of December is less than the area the sun covers on the 21st of June, right? Now, if you take a flashlight and you hold it close to a table, it'll be intense, but it will cover less of an area. If you lift it back up a bit off of the table, it'll cover a greater area, a greater diameter. So it's very likely, and I can't say for definite because I couldn't prove it, but it's very likely that that the sun, and this is what I stated years ago, is closer to the Earth on December 21st and moving at its fastest rate through the sky because it's covering a greater area, and it's further from the Earth on June the 21st and moving slower in the sky because it has less area to cover, less of a circuit to cover. Now, I don't know what the sun is. I don't know how it does what it does, or even if it's doing that. But that is definitely a better explanation than what heliocentrism gives us. Because even Gleason states on his map. Now, I'm not saying his map is correct. I'm not saying that these elements he adds to the map are 100% correct or anything. But he does state that on the 21st of December, right, which is the southern solstice, right, that no light goes past 80 degrees south, right? Which means when you see people, and I made a video about this a while back, when you see people standing at what they're claiming to be 90 degrees south in some place called Antarctica on a big sunny day, according to Gleason, that can't happen because there is no light past 80 degrees because the sun is closer to the Earth. So it's not covering as great an area. And so that means the only day there could be light in Antarctica at 90 degrees, right, is on that day. There would definitely be light there. And this is the one day, even not that day, there isn't, according to Gleason, due to the sun cycle. So it is very likely that the sun is, the point I'm making is very likely that the sun is getting closer to us towards at its closest point on December 21st and getting higher above us as it heads to its highest point on June the 21st. That is likely.
What do you mean
I'd
likely?
like to answer.
That's self-evident.
No, don't go.
That is what it does. That's self-evident, though.
Well, no, because you could put it down to perspective. Unless you give it a bit of thought and looked into it.
Okay.
There's other things.
Let me rephrase. That is what it apparently does, Brian.
Yeah, but if you look into why it would do that, why it would happen, and what effects it has.
I mean, you can only speculate, but you've incorporated a description of what does actually occur. And I'm going to wholeheartedly agree with you. You know, I can watch it move from the horizon, staying low to the horizon in winter, to up towards my zenith in summer, staying in the sky for a longer period of time as it does so. Adam's got the analemma up. I don't know where he wants to insert at this point. Go ahead, Adam. Is it you that presented this?
Yeah, it's just to add that this is what an analemma is. It's the midday position of the sun taken throughout the year, and this demonstrates the transit. So this is where you get these two sides of the apogee of summer and winter. But this is why no day is 24 hours long, because the sun returns at a slightly different position because it's doing a slightly different path in the sky. As we come out of summer, it's heading to the equator, and each path is getting slightly longer. So it's got to speed up, and it's to get back to the same position. There's a slight difference every single day, and these differences are demonstrated here throughout the year, and that shows you the path. And then what Brian's saying is, look, if you look at the bottom here, this is winter, midday in winter, and this is midday summer on the two equinoxes. These are the vernals here at the crossover point. So you can see the relative 24-hour positioning of the sun throughout the year.
Because the sun is changing. It would have to be changed if we go from an earthly point of view, right? Talking as mere mortal men, the sun is changing its acceleration rate day to day, or it has a different acceleration rate day to day. Now, I don't know what happens when it goes from today to tomorrow, All I know is that it appears, or would have to, or appears to be changing its acceleration rate, according to our earthly ideas, let's just say.
Can I tie
You
what
can,
Adam is
you can,
saying,
but
or-
hold on. Adam's getting challenged by Paula in the chat. So, yeah, you're right. Level Lips just corrected Michael Kahn in that regard. So, the back and forth between Michael and Paula was in regards to the Most High and reference to the Bible. Yes, it is, but that's not how Adam was contextualizing it. He was talking about Egyptians and their reference to the sun god being Most High. You've just been asked for citation in that regard, Adam. That was all.
It's not a Bible quote. If people want to use it in the Bible, I'm talking pre-biblical. So, like I said, in respect to the Arton, the sun disk, that's the Christians don't refer to the sun as God. It was Egyptian reference because it was at its most high, its highest point it ever achieved in the sky on that vernal equinox.
No, we got that bit. She's asking you for a citation for that.
I could have to go and dig it out, but it's Egyptian as opposed to any biblical.
What's this you're talking about?
She said the same thing. At Nathan Oakley, sorry to cut you off, Brian. I was asking for a citation as to the Egyptians using the term. Right, that's exactly what I've just collared him on. Yeah, I got what you were asking for, Paula. I asked him for it.
I can get you. I'll get it. Yeah, I'll get you where the original anointed one comes from. It's all Egyptian. This terminology, how it's then used in later religions, it can have different applications in Greek, Hebrew, whatever. But yeah, I'll find it.
Okay, great.
There's an old bit in the back of my head.
Hold on, I just want to smile and tip of the cap to the respect that we offer to Paula straight from the chat. Yeah, I'll be on it, Paula. The respect that Paula commands is quite lofty. I was just going to say the respect that Paula commands is quite lofty. I just wanted to acknowledge it. That was all. Go ahead, Adam.
No, it was me.
Oh, 10th. Go ahead.
Well, can I go as well after that?
Right.
You can after I shout out a super chat. So thank you to Original D Rose. Money's been tight for why I haven't done as many super chats, Nathan. But I figured I'm not be cheap and drop one. Welcome to Flat Earth. You globalicious Earth ball lovers require flat level bases. And he's got triangles. Triangles require flat level bases. Yeah, indeed. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate the support, Original D Rose.
I'm going to try to tie this all together, which the second part that Paula brought in will make it even better. The Most High God in the Bible created the sun, moon, and stars. Cultures decided to worship them. We learned from these cultures because they put tremendous amount of time of tracking them. And this is where I want to bring Brian in just for this little part, and then I want to keep going. So, Brian, what's that site in Ireland where one day of the year the sun goes through that hole and lights up that room? What is that place called?
I'll tell you, but I also have a point to make concerning.
I know,
what
but you gotta
just
wait
said
till I
about-
finish.
yeah.
You
But
gotta wait till I finish.
Newgrange is the if you want to look for it on the map, it's Newgrange. We're on the 21st of December. Yeah, Bruno Boyne on the 21st of December. On the 21st of December, in the morning of the 21st of Adams, that's what throw me off. In the morning of the 21st of December, the sun shines, and the 22nd, I think, the sun shines directly into the chamber. There was another one similar to it, based off of the equinox, I think it was, in Egypt at one time. But there is another one identical to it in France, in Brittany, in France.
Like in the Fifth Element. Like in the Fifth Element, right?
I don't know about the Fifth Element.
Multi-pass.
Okay, so my point is that this happens every 21st of December. Adam, is there other structures around the Earth that are set to how the sun moves in the sky that do the same thing?
Yes.
Okay, multiple
sites, multiple locations, all across the plane. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So now we've got movement of a created luminary that is for times and seasons and dates and so forth. Great, fantastic. The difference in Christianity is that we say God, the Most High, made all these things, and different cultures ended up giving divinity or worshiping the things that were made, which God says do not worship things that are created or any idols. So, but you can't take away from their work of how they tracked it and built monuments that prove the very point of the geocentric plane that we live on, because it's the sun in the sky that's moving, and thousands of years later it's still doing the same thing. It's the heliocentric spinning globe that's got the problem with multiple movements: rotation on the axis, orbiting around the sun, flying through the universe following the sun, and then the Milky Way galaxy, and who knows what else. But at least those four destroys star trail photography, which means it's only happening because the stars are moving, because you can't have all those movements, have all these dates, have the sun thousands of years later still peep through Lagrange. I love it. I just love that we could kill it this easily.
Another shout out to D Rose. He says, "You're welcome, although you kind of jacked it up." Yeah, I struggle. I don't know what it is with your particular typing style, D Rose. I always end up butchering it. My bad. Thank you for the super chats. I really do appreciate it. And the sentiment. You know, when you're at your most broke, yeah, the chances are the videography you're watching is just as broke or more. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, should we crack on a little bit more with this video? We're nearly at the end.
No, there's something I have to add in.
Distinguishment, if I can, before Brian makes
Hang on.
just to clear up on the
Please.
one before you go past, because Spencer said it there in the way he's and Christians would describe and use the term Most High. Now, it's to signify there is only one God, yeah, or it's the Most High God. This is not how the Egyptians are using it. He's saying he's at his Most High on this day. It's not referencing any other God. It's not making that Most High bit is only in relation to him and his position of the altar, nothing to do with reference to superiority over any of the other gods. It's literally positional of the God. On that day, they recognized he was at his most high. So not a claim as it would be used in other religious terms.
Yeah, we got all that the first time, but you asked for a citation.
Can I?
I'm fishing round for it. It's killing me, mate. It's not something I'd stored. It was just another, red fact from.
Okay, well, thank you for reiterating it, and that under any other circumstances might have got the fact you haven't produced a citation to back the third time we've heard it. But I like how Paul has got you now sweating with one comment. Historical standards,
sweating.
man.
I don't see the challenge personally.
Perspiring.
Not.
Right, he's trying to demean it now, Paula. Check it, you got it right on the back foot. Anyway.
I won't be on the back foot when I've got it, will I?
That's appeal to the. He's just employed a fallacy. Appeal to the future.
Wow. Right, I'm searching now, you buggers.
See, I've pushed him further.
Yeah.
We're having fun. We're still live. Over 100 people watching. Okay, Brian.
Can I make my point then?
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Please don't.
There's been a misrepresentation happen. A lot of people think that most of the world learned about Egypt from the Discovery Channel, things like that, National Geographic. And a lot of people were claimed to be experts on Egypt, don't have a clue about what they're talking about. Now, I'm not going to go in adding a load of information here about Egypt, because it's not everyone's business. This thing about how people have to understand, right? It comes from a biases, right, with modern day religious beliefs that what they would call pagans all worship the sun. That is not the truth. The Druids in Ireland would pray towards the sun in the daytime. They didn't worship the sun. The sun was the biggest representation of God they could find in the world. So they prayed towards the sun, not that they were worshipping the sun. They were worshipping God. They were giving homage to God. They weren't worshipping the sun. It's just the sun is the greatest thing we have. It's the most powerful thing we have as a representation of God's creation, let's just say. And if people think that people in Egypt worship the sun, then they're in fantasy land. Nobody worshipped the sun. Now, there might be some groups of people that worship the sun, and they weren't good people, or they were misguided or whatever. But I know that people didn't go around worshipping the sun, right? They weren't stupid.
Right, it's propagandized though. It's even a Cleveland show joke. So they go back in time to the ancient times, and there's the kids, Stone Age kids, in this flashback, and they're watching a stone TV. And rather than it being a broadcast, there's literally two people sat inside the TV doing the TV news, and they cut to this scene, and the broadcasters say, "In other news, the sun. What is it, and how can we worship it?"
Yeah, that's the
Where was
thing.
that from? I've seen that.
It's caveman. Oh, I'm sorry, Chocolate.
No, I recognize it. Where did you hear that, Nathan? I remember
Cleveland
that.
show. Cleveland. Is it called the Cleveland show?
Oh, the
Family Guy
spin-off of
spin-off.
Family
Offshoot of
Guy.
Family Guy.
Yeah. It sounded like a Family Guy thing.
Yeah, it's a Family Guy spin-off. It's Seth MacFarlane.
So if no one worshipped the
I
sun,
just
why
want to
is it
say-
called heliocentrism? If nobody worshipped the sun.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with Egypt or the Druids. That's way after that.
there we go.
Heliocentrism is the sun is the
Sun
center
center.
of the system. It's nothing to do with religion. It's to do with the model heliocentrism.
Well,
Wasn't
it is got to do
Helios
with
the sun
religion.
god?
Heliocentric religion.
Yeah. But that's to do with the shape of the model of the heavens, isn't it? As opposed
But
to
Helios was the sun god, right?
Helios.
Helios-
No. If you want to employ an etymological fallacy, then you can say that. In the model, heliocentric just means, as Adam just described, helio, that's the name given to the sun. Well, you can say, well, that means it's Helios. No, it's the name of the sun in the model, and it's at the centre, i.e. the world that we experience is revolving around it. That's heliocentric. Well, yes, the derivative etymology of the word helios in heliocentric is a sun god. But does that mean that it puts a sun god at the centre? No, it means the light in the sky we call the sun is at the centre of the model. That's all it means.
Believe what
Yeah,
you want to believe, but it speaks for itself.
No, Neil. The problem is that we're giving a version of the old world as if they were either a crowd of idiots, caveman idiots, or they're a crowd of devil-worshipping sun followers, right? Now, I'm not saying there wasn't groups like that, because those groups exist today, right? But to think that they were all these, what this term pagans, they were all these crazy idiots who worshipped all kinds of crazy stuff, like that's completely wrong. Because there's so much stuff from the old world they can't even figure out.
But just
So
to
we're
blow,
giving that goes back to Darwinism, as far as I'm concerned. That type of attitude.
to go back to Neil to blow his mind, instead of the sun being worshipped, earlier we talked about the tilt, the apologetics of the seasonal claims of an axial tilt. What is it, 66.6 degrees off horizontal? Well, that tilt is Earth bowing to the sun, not men.
Exactly.
Okay, right, hopefully we've exhausted that. We're going to get to the end of this video.
Well,
Constellations.
just
So
on
we
the
have
tilt-
Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo. Here is Libra. As we
not
go
gonna
along
have a
that
chance
plane
to
of
say it.
ecliptic. The
Oh,
other
okay,
line that
go
you
on,
might
Brian.
Yeah, before all this started, Nathan, what I wanted to come in and say was for the audience to take note of the no tilt being used in the with astronomy and with EQ mounts telescopes and the planosphere. No tilt. Why no tilt? Because the tilt doesn't exist, right? So no tilt means no globe Earth, no Kepler's Annalena. No offset elliptical orbit of the sun, heliocentric sun. No tilt means no heliocentric model, including globe. Thanks, Nathan.
That's all right. Well, I was going to, in the next 2 or 3 minutes, round out the show, but we've got 121 people watching. So, as I've said, I'll extend the show. I will actually extend it till we get to the end of this video. Maybe we'll even get to 130 people watching. A very warm welcome to all of you who smashed the links that have been shared by the people who are watching live before now. Please share the show yourself if you haven't done so already.
C is the celestial equator. So here's the celestial equator. And the celestial equator is an extension of the Earth's equator out into space. And that is right there.
Boom. What she's just described is the flat plane, known as the equatorial plane. Now, she just described it as the guy in the video yesterday alluded to with an animation where he projected out a flat plane into space. But that's the plane that you'll actually be standing on when you're taking these angle measurements or describing this chart in regards to being 50 to 60 degrees or 30 to 40 degrees or whatever it is that the chart's claiming to be, all of which requires a flat plane. But the equatorial plane that they're describing is just a surface for you to have an angle measurement off, that if described with a sphere Earth involved, it'll be wrapped around you like you're in the middle of hell at the molten iron core taking these measurements, with a flat surface emanating out, as she described it, out into space. What space? It just goes out to wherever we see the stars. Now, I don't know what that is or where that is, but that is how it represents itself to us. They are apparently at this angle, off a flat plane when measured. And they'll always be there, but we know because of the cyclical nature of them. So that all that means is that she's just made the same apologetics as the guy yesterday, hinted at the notion of us being on a flat plane, and described that flat plane emanating out into space. No, we just live on a flat plane. Now, back in nautical terms, it's also been described that way back in books that have been shown by 10th Man, back in the, or it might have been Brian, I forget which, back in the 1800s when they described space. All right, so the plane of the ecliptic, not the, the equatorial plane emanating out into space. Okay, well, prior to the New World being found, that was what they described also. The area emanating out beyond the equator, out into space, was the area that the New Worlds were found in. Yeah, and you're not mishearing my terminology. New worlds in space being found. Yeah, that's right. That's how it was all described. And some of the remnants of those descriptions, with our flat Earth that we dwell atop being described as emanating out into space in this example, is one of those remnants. Prior to the hijacking of the zenith world above you having planets, new worlds to find in space, they previously were found out at what she's just juxtaposed and convoluted between the two. An equatorial plane emanating out into space. That's where your new land will be. If that's what this deception's about, and Math Powerland's right, and it's just a deception using math about land to gain power, well, by our own historical evidence, and by virtue of the fact that these places now exist and have people on them, and they've been colonised, I can take it as read that they are true accounts of how the land that is already probably in existence has been discovered. In space. Out towards the horizon.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, that's another part of the no-tilt thing, because the no-tilt means that what the globers would call the equatorial plane, that amalgamates with the celestial plane. So, you know, when we do, let's just say, a 5,400 nautical mile measurement to a celestial body, let's say to Polaris, let's just say, and it would stretch much further than their equator would stretch, because they arc all that distance, if you know what I mean. Like it stretches in a straight line out past where that arc would stop, right? Even though that distance that they have on the arc is the same. This is what, when the no-tilt takes away that arc, because it takes away all the seasons, takes away the globe, because the globe needs the tilt. So what she's basically saying there, and what they were stating in celestial navigation, is that equatorial plane and that celestial plane are the same plane. It's not as if you leave a physical surface and go after a certain distance and go end off out into space. No, that's still a physical plane. That's what she doesn't know it, but that's actually what she's detailing.
Maybe in a minute we'll get into whether or not that is the main purpose behind this deception, because what does it actually do? The globe deception wraps around itself so that you don't end up exploring new territory out in space where the new lands were formerly discovered, before they started just being named third world countries. Oh no, that's not good either. Developing countries. Yeah, that's much better. Ask Dad Everything says, "This is my favourite morning show of all time. Brilliant host and panel. I've learned so much from you all. Thanks, FED." Oh, wow. That is about as nice a compliment as I can get. And it's attached to cash. Thank you so much, Ask Dad Everything. Anything. Really appreciate the support. Go ahead.
Agreed.
Nathan, just
shout out to you, guy.
And I agree.
Okay, fine, but let Brian set Nathan straight on this, because that's not what we're saying.
No, Nathan, you're missing something, right? The celestial plane. You know the size of the equatorial plane in the globe model, right? It has a limited size of a circumference of 24,000, close to 900 miles in circumference, right? No, what she's stating is No, that is not 24,900 miles, whatever, in circumference. She's stating that that stretches on further. That's what the no tilt means. That's what the equatorial plane and the celestial plane amalgamating because of no tilt means. It means that there is no stopping of the equatorial plane and then the starting of the celestial plane. It's just one massive plane. So Australia is on that plane. South America is on that plane. South Africa is on that plane. You understand what I mean?
Yes,
So
you were correct.
about
I had
discovering new things past then.
no.
It's about
I
them being
appreciate
on
what
the
you're
same
saying.
plane.
When you introduce the tilt and start making apologetics and heliocentrism, coming up with the explanations for it, you're missing the fact that when it works on this star chart, it all just works off one flat plane. So the fact that it doesn't jive with us moving around the sun is irrelevant because it still jives on the chart. The dotted line that she gave apologetics within heliocentrism for is essentially the same flat plane as the equatorial plane. It doesn't just stop at the equator and become a new star chart sandwiched underneath antipodal. It just extends out. It's just a bigger plane, right? And yes, I had missed that point, subtle though it wasn't.
So that sounds like the tilt is, what's that word again? Negligible?
Well, it's debunking their position, isn't it? When you talk about how the world actually functions. Their tilt is another apologetic that doesn't jive with actual reality when you come to navigating the surface of the plane that we actually live on. And when you describe it, it doesn't matter how the movement of the stars in its pattern doesn't jive with heliocentrism. It still just works and operates on the same flat plane as everything else, because that's what the world actually is. Quick shout out to Godzilla37. Just one shout out. If you agree, then send your money, Neil, to me. Smiley face. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it.
Can you go to Master? Can you go to Master D for a visual?
Yes.
You go to Master D for a visual side by side of what Brian has just explained.
Okay, it's on screen.
All right, Brian, do you see it?
Doesn't the tilt hold on, can I ask something? Doesn't the tilt require an axis and doesn't the axis require a radius? What tilt?
There's multiple stabbing wounds we could give the globe. We're just on the tilt right now.
Okay, I'm going to shout out another super chat and then you can get to that visual in a second. I second that super chat, but it's afternoon for me, says Michael Kahn. Thank you very much, all of you, for the super chats. Really appreciate it.
Brian, you want this or you want me to do it?
Yeah, you go ahead, Tank, because I have to put it up on Skype and stuff, so I'll be looking at it as you're speaking.
All right, no problem. All right, so on the left, we show 23.5 degrees tilt. On the right, we show no tilt. What happened? Oh, vernal equinox is being used as the reference point for sky map. That's over. The minute they do this, they kill tilt, right? They throw away seasons. They throw away the whole heliocentric model based on the mathematics that needs it. Because what they're saying here is that if we're going to get off the Earth and not use the Earth as the coordinate system, but we're going to use the sky as the coordinate system, no tilt, flat plane. It extends all the way to the celestial sphere, as Brian described earlier. Whereas in the first picture, side right next to it, it shows the tilt going all the way. The equator of the Earth is tilted towards the sun by 23.5 degrees. And so the whole point is the sun is moving. And you can see in that picture, it's the sun path, okay, on the left. So the sun is moving north and south of the equator on a yearly basis, and they've tried to say that's Earth tilt. Except when it comes to, when it crosses the equinox, as Adam showed in Analema, the points where they cross on the equinox, that's the date they use to categorize all the stars and to find them with a right ascension declination equatorial mount telescope. So the equatorial mount extends past the Earth's surface on their globe all the way to the celestial sphere.
Okay, let's get back into this video. Hopefully we'll get to the end of it.
What do you mean? Just
you can note right ascension and declination on planospheres. Right ascension is given in hours. So this is 12 hours, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, etc. And declination is angles from the celestial equator up towards the pole of the celestial sphere. So it starts at 0, 10.
You're going to need a flat Earth for those elevation angle measurements. Flat Earth required.
No, you're going to need no tilt Earth.
Yeah, the Earth can't be tilted either.
Get it? So what you got left? A plane.
Plane. Yeah, absolutely.
And what she got in her hand?
A flat
star
chart.
map.
A flat star chart. You know, which also highlights
But-
the fact that the representation that we're given when they described the pimple on the Earth yesterday, it's like, no, you're not talking about a pimple. When these lines that you can see on screen now, marked in degrees, running down with her finger over, those represent a flat sky and a perspective view of that sky, represented on this flat chart. So the two run parallel. Now, as they move along the night sky, they may descend towards the horizon, changing their angle. Well, if that's the case, with the exception of Polaris, then you can plot that, but only on the basis that you've got a flat sky running along a parallel flat Earth. That's how this must function.
Yeah, tilt is never part of observations to Polaris. They never bring tilt into the observations of Polaris because that is a straight line that extends beyond what, in a straight line, it extends beyond 3,959 miles. What she's pointing out, and what that points out, is that the radial distance, let's just say if we want to call it a radial distance, from the GP point of Polaris, right, or what they would need it to be would be out to the equator would be 3,959 miles, right? But what this points out is like, no, because they're using 90s and 180s, it's not. It's 6,213, I think it is, or 10 miles. Statute miles. But it should be 5,400 nautical miles. Because that 90 of Polaris starting at underneath Polaris and is ending up at the equator. But what she's pointing out is that that equator can't be an arc down below the GP point of Polaris. It has to be a straight line out from Polaris. Just like with celestial navigation.
Yeah, it's worse than that, Brian. When we use a sextant, we're using horizontal coordinate system, Earth-based. So we use the horizon and the elevation angle of the star above the horizon. If you want to go to equatorial mount system, as we did a show on it, you're no longer using an Earth-based coordinate system. You're using a star-based coordinate system with the same longitude, latitude lines, Cartesian, that are on our maps. But it's now on the sky, and wherever the stars are, they're in those lines of longitude, latitude. They call the latitude declination, they call the longitude right ascension in hours. She just got through saying that if you go back 20 seconds, here's the hours and the right ascension. Okay, well, if you can't afford a really nice equatorial mount telescope, guess what? Just go buy one of these planospheres because they work the same way. Based on what? No tilt Earth. Goodbye, heliocentrism.
And with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are one of the over 100 people watching live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, gifted members, hit me up on PayPal and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you are watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.